a good start with all 5 boats answering the call and making good legal starts. Not surprisingly, it was Vilwalk and the Miss Budweiser who took an early lead first time down the backstretch. The lead grew for the first lap or two, but Mike Hansen in the U9 WAVX radio would not relent. He stayed right on the hip of the Miss Budweiser. There was some great racing back in 3rd and 4th as Steve David in the Oberto and Nate Brown hooked it up. Disappointing finish for Greg Hopp, whose race ended early when the U100 Miss Rabin tires settled into the infield with no power. The thrilling finish came in the last 100 yards of Heat 1A when Mike Hansen, who had been right on the hip of Miss Budweiser throughout the final lap, pulled up beside Miss Budweiser, stuck a nose out ahead, and took the checkered flag. Heat 1A going to Mike Hansen and Miss WABX. Chris McClure talked to the winning driver in a very happy U9 camp.
Mike, the last 300 yards, the key to the whole thing. Did you see him lift there a little bit?
Yeah, he got a little high. We were both trying to give it some canard to fly the boat off the turn. It was a drag race coming off that turn to the start-finish line, and I was able to glide a little bit. He got a little high, had to get out of it, and allowed us to get by.
Is that one of the better boat races you've been in a while?
Well, there's a lot of good boat racing. There really is, but not too often you pick the red boat off on the outside. And, you know, Dave and the Budweiser guys are a great group of people, and they help us. So this is kind of like a team win. It went the other way.
Let me take you back into the first part of the race. He pulled you pretty good in the first lap, maybe 150, 200 yards, maybe more, and you cut that in half or more in the second lap. That had to be key.
We seem to carry a little bit more boat speed going down into the big turn and down there. And if you can carry boat speed in there, you can come off the turn with a lot, and that's where we were getting him down there. He beat me in the first turn, and he was faster through there in the lumpy water, but that big sweeper down there in 3 and 4, we could carry a little bit more speed than he could.
Well done. That's a good start.
All right, thank you.
Heat 1B belonged almost exclusively to the U3 and Mitch Evans in the Master Tire machine powered by the piston Allison engine. He qualified at 152.422 miles an hour, qualifying record over a 2-mile course for this kind of a boat with piston power. Mitch won the start and never looked back as he stormed his way to a 4-lap victory. His brother Mark Evans gave him some trouble in the early going for about 3/4 of a lap. But in the second turn, just before the exit pin, the Lumar U8 bogged down and came to a stop. The rest of the field came storming by him. He was able to restart, and about a half lap later, he came storming back into position number 3 in the event and was able to salvage that from this trouble-fraught run. Miss Emcor, meantime, tried to draw a bead on Mitch Evans, but couldn't quite come to terms, though he did maintain contact through all 4 laps, trailing by a couple hundred yards most of the time, and he finished a very solid second place in the heat. Superior Racing's U25, Ken Muscatel at the wheel, held off the brand new U2 Trend West for a good deal of the heat, but toward the end, Terry Troxel got the Trend West sorted out a little bit, was able to pull away for a 4th place finish. 5th went to Ken Muscatel. Now let's go to the dock. Here's Steve Montgomery with our winner.
Mitch Evans, the winner of Heat 1B in the U3 Master Tire with piston power. A little different than last year at this time, huh?
Yeah, definitely. What can you say? The new boat's awesome. We haven't had a lot of time to run it. We took a wild guess on a good setup, and actually the boat pulls really well. So we got a long ways to go, but boy, this thing out of the box is amazing.
Looked like it was going to be you and Brother Mark, but he went away.
Yeah, I guess he said he tried to turn inside a little bit and must have got hung up in the rooster tail. We had a good running going there, and I figured he was going to get up beside me pretty quick. They're running really strong, so I just tried to maintain my speed and keep out of trouble.
Can't start the day and the season any better than that.
No, that's for sure. We had a great weekend, and hopefully we're going to be there at the end.
Heat 2A, the lanes were inverted from the order of finish in Heat 1A, which meant that Greg Hopp in the U100 had lane 1 after he did not finish in Heat 1A. Lane 2 went to Nate Brown, the Miss Elam Plus. He had finished 4th previously. Steve David right in the middle of the field in the U6 Oh Boy Oberto. Dave Vilwalk, after a 2nd place finish, was out in lane 4, and Mike Hansen, who had nosed him out in 1A, started way from the outside. As the start approached, Nate Brown put the Elam Plus out ahead by about a second, and in fact was across the line too soon by about that 1 second. So what appeared to be a great duel between Brown and Vilwalk was actually not that, as Brown had already been penalized a lap and would finish back in the field. Dave Vilwalk driving to an easy victory then in Heat 2A with good racing back behind him between Steve David in the Oh Boy Oberto and Mike Hansen in the U9. It was Steve David hanging on for what would eventually be second place after Nate Brown was moved down to fourth. Brown did get around Greg Hopp, who at one point had stopped in turn 2 but was able to restart. So the final order of finish showed Vilwalk in first place, second place going to Steve David in the Oh Boy Oberto. Third was Mike Hansen in the U9 WABX radio. Fourth place then to Nate Brown after running his extra lap, and Greg Hopp, after pausing for a moment and restarting the boat, was awarded fifth place. Let's go down to Chris McClure in the Budweiser camp with the winning driver.
Long way around, took about a lap and a half, but you got there.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. I mean, Mark Smith and the Bud guys, you know, they changed fins, they changed rudders, they changed motor stuff, and changed propellers and managed to get a good setup for the outside there. And I think they just anticipated the conditions just a little better. I was able to get a good start. Some other guys jumped and, you know, made the job a little easier.
Once you got into the lead, you seem to be, what, about lane 2.5 or 3. Nice, comfortable arc through the corners, lots of room to work and all that.
Yeah, I just tried to keep from doing something stupid. So it worked out for us.
Well done.
Thanks.
It's the first heat win that will officially say Joe Little as owner of the Budweiser racing team, and he's with Chris.
First official win as the owner. Is that a special moment for you?
That is an outstanding moment. I can't be happier for Dave. To win on the outside with Miss Budweiser is fantastic. I obviously hugged my wife and my son, our first win of 2003. Can't wait to get up and call my mom and tell her that we won the first heat race. So very exciting to be here. All the boats head to head. It's great.
The inside starting lane for Heat 2B went to the U25 of Dr. Ken Muscatel, but he was washed down prior to the start and was unable to answer the green flag, at least not immediately. He did soldier on to a fifth-place finish. At the front, the Lumar of Mark Evans stormed off to the lead and held it throughout the event to pick up his first heat victory in over 2 years, followed fairly closely by the Miss M-Corps U10 of Mike Weber, who picked up the 30 points for second place. Mitch Evans, who won in the first heat, brought his Master Tire machine home in third and put himself in pretty good position to move on through into the final later in the day. And Terry Troxel in the Trend West finished fourth with a good solid development run as this test day for that brand new hull continues.
Recapping the action in Heat 3A, the big story was Mike Weber in the U10 Miss M-Corps. Weber needed a strong run in 3A to make the final, and he would get it. At the start, he was led across the line by Mark Evans in the Lumar coming from lane 2. Out in lane 3, it was Mike Hansen in the WABX. Lane 4, Mitch Evans in the Master Tire. And out in lane 5, Dave Vilwalk in Miss Budweiser. All 4 of the boats in lanes 2, 3, 4, and 5 were previous winners on the day. Could Weber hold them off? Well, the bad news for Mark Evans in the Lumar was that his lead was a little too big, and again, he had jumped the gun. Things did not go well for Mark the rest of the heat as he would hook the boat, get into the back of the M-Corps, and spend some time parked in the Ohio River. Mike Hansen in the WABX also had engine problems, costing him a strong finish and leaving Dave Vilwalk and Miss Budweiser and Mitch Evans in the Master Tire to pursue Mike Weber, who led it wire to wire. So a first-place finish for Mike Weber in the M-Corps, second place going eventually to Dave Vilwalk and Miss Budweiser, third to Mitch Evans in the Master Tire, fourth place awarded to Mike Hansen in the WABX, and again, a penalty lap for Mark Evans in the Lumar, finishing fifth.
The only certainty about Heat 3B was that it would provide one boat for the final heat here at Budweiser's Thunder on the Ohio. The top candidate was Steve David in Oh Boy Oberto. Sixth in points on the day, he had only to finish 1, 2, or 3, and he was in. The U16 Miss Elam, driven by Nate Brown, needed to win it and hope Oberto would finish fourth or worse. Well, that didn't seem likely. After 2 laps in the lead, Oberto seemed secure. Elam did catch up and did take the lead, and then took the checkered to do all he could on his own behalf, but he needed help, and he got it. David had jumped the start. He had to run an extra lap, and he didn't even know it until the heat was nearly over. But when he found out about it, the Elam pilot Nate Brown reacted this way with Steve Montgomery.
Nate Brown finally put the orange boat where we thought it would be out front. A couple of guys ahead of you a little early. Did you think they were?
Yeah. I mean, if I wouldn't have scrubbed the speed, I'd have been right over with them. They did a good job of pulling me over, but I must have been close even at that. But I knew pretty much that they had jumped. But, you know, it still doesn't keep you from wanting to race. I mean, I wanted to go out there and race a Boy Oberto boat. You know, Steve's a great driver, and we had a lot of fun out there.